Which archetype has been quietly shaping your life story? And is it time to release the role that you've been playing, or is it time to rewrite it? How would your relationships change if you stopped playing the role and started seeing the role?
Welcome to the Angelscapes podcast, where you're encouraged to uncover and develop a direct connection with your soul's power, wisdom, and spiritual intuition that is ready to blossom. We'll explore new ideas, compelling tips, and real steps to help you learn simple spiritual practices. We're a safe place to learn more about accessing your soul's power with education and spiritual wholeness that could bring more clarity to your life. Now here's your host, a practicing medium, Akashic Records practitioner, spirit artist, coach, and mentor, Dr. Reverend Nancy Smith.
Hello, and welcome to Angelscapes, and I'm your host, Nancy Smith, your guide to living a soul-powered life. You are invited to join my Facebook group, Soul Power Living, where we can continue discussions started in this podcast, or any of these podcasts. If you have any questions, join the group and post your questions. In this episode, join me for a discussion that explores the powerful and sometimes limiting roles of archetypes, the inner pattern we inherit, replay, and eventually outgrow, from being the good girl or good boy, or to the wounded child, and any role that you might be playing within your family structure, the originating family structure, from the fixer to the warrior. We will talk about how these archetypes can trap us in patterns, maybe family patterns, and disempower us, and how we can recognize what archetypes or what roles we're playing and begin to empower ourselves by stepping out of the roles and only using them when it's necessary. Discover how self-love and conscious awareness can move you out of the drama triangle of victim, victimizer, and fixer, and into a balanced, authentic life aligned with your soul. In this episode, we're going to explore something very, very ancient and deeply human that is commonly referred to as archetypes. This word came up not that long ago, this modern word, that uses descriptions to describe how people are behaving. The archetype of the mother, the archetype of the father. Archetypes are patterns we use to make sense of ourselves in the world. They are roles our soul has learned to play, and we've learned to play these in many different aspects of our lives, not just as youngsters and children growing up, but also as we entered the school world, the education world, and then we entered into the working world, then we enter into larger relationships, whether you're married and have family, or you have extended family, or your relationship of the community. What roles do you play to make these relationships work, or to make your life prosper? They are roles our soul has learned to play, sometimes to express love and sometimes simply to survive. Throughout life, we may wear many archetypal masks. Hopefully now at this point you would know what I'm talking about by archetypes. We could be the bully, you could be the victim, you could be the mean guy, the victimizer, you could be the one that runs around and fixes everyone, or you could just do all of the roles all at once. There's the wounded child, there's the playful child, there's the mystic, the healer. There's so many different hats. We could wear more than 3 hats at one time. Being in modern times, these old roles are being challenged, and they're being shifted and changed. These patterns aren't necessarily bad. They're symbolic languages, the way the soul experiments with being human. We're being asked to question what it truly means. For instance, the archetype of a woman. What does that mean? We know what it meant 100 years ago, 200 years ago, but right now in the 21st century, what does being a woman mean? What does being a man mean? And even a mother or a father, a parent, or even a good person, especially in the past couple of years, we've been really challenged to take a look at what does it mean to be a good person. And if the archetype of being a good person is being challenged by the bully, and we stay in the archetype of being a good person, can we overcome the challenge that's coming from the bully? So these are all really important questions that society right now is bringing up into our faces. My favorite way of exploring archetypes and what archetypes I might be carrying or what archetypes other people might be carrying is just to watch the movies or watch TV shows or programs. Some of them are very luscious, full of archetypes. And see if you can identify all of the different roles, all the different archetypes at play in the news, even, and in the politics, even, and in drama. And what archetypes do you resonate with? What archetypes do you not resonate with? What do you admire? What do you say, I'll never go there? Or what do you feel you fall into for making the most sense out of your life? So sometimes we can admire somebody openly and despise somebody or some role that somebody's playing openly, and secretly we aren't even letting ourselves know, I really like the way that person kicked butt, but I don't think I could ever kick butt. So I'll just be my good person and not be somebody who ruffles the airwaves. So it's important when you observe these archetypes to observe yourself observing them and to see what are you resonating with, what's the emotional reaction to it, and to this role playing or this presentation that's in front of you. And what do you want to do with it? What does it tell you about yourself? How you're reacting, how you're not reacting? So children learn roles earlier. They learn the child, the hungry child. They learn the I don't have enough child, the manipulative child. They learn the playful child. And a lot of times children, before they learn these archetypes, and by the time you're a year old, you've learned a few ways of behaving to get your parents to give you what it is that you want and need. But if we watch a child all the way up until the age of 12, their authentic self shows up, who they really are. If they're a very playful child, if they're really interested in certain things, if they're a climber or a dancer, or if they are quiet and a poet, or they're very effervescent and they make friends easily, that can point to who they are, who the essence of who they really are as a being, as their spirit. And many times that essence, that effervescence or that authentic way of being can be scrubbed out through life experiences. And so maybe the child who is very loving and effervescent and wants to make everyone happy turns into the good girl or boy. And they begin to learn the rules of what a good girl or boy does, but they lose the essence of what it is that they were working towards when they were young, who their spirit really was. And by playing the role of the good girl or good boy comes a lot of rules. Roles and rules are like this. They come together as cousins or brothers and sisters. And the roles have to follow certain rules in order to be accepted, as that's the archetype you're going to play. The pleaser, the helper, the one who carries the family's hopes and dreams of whatever your parents' hopes and dreams are, can sometimes be put upon a child. Many of us can share that. I wanted to do such and such, but really, mom and dad were thinking I ought to go in this direction. And so I did, because they told me we'd be more successful, and on we go. And then finally you hit the age of 45 or 50 or 60 and go, oh, that wasn't me at all. I just spent all that time covering myself up, and now I'm starting to pull the threads of who I really am. And sometimes we actually need archetypes to help us pull the threads of who we really are. The archetype of the healer, the archetype of the compassion, the compassionate understanding. I guess that would fit into healer, but there's a lot of archetypes inside one healer, and we might need somebody who knows those skills and has that role that they could play as they pull you out. You could have fallen into the fixer role and lost the essence that you're actually an inventor, and you have been busy fixing everything, but you forgot to invent the things that clearly whatever it is isn't working, so you can invent a new way, and that you're the observer, and you're also very creative, and all of that was lost in the rules and the regulations of the role that you chose, either the fixer or the engineer. Even people who are highly creative have to find a way. I had a friend who was a painter, have to find a way out of their own role that they create for themselves. And as a painter, she was very popular, very famous in the galleries for certain paintings that she did and certain style that she did. And after about a decade of it, she was, I need to grow. I need to develop something beyond what I'm doing now. And I'm now painting for the galleries. I'm not painting for myself anymore. And there was a huge dilemma because she had worked her way to the point where she could leave her 9-to-5 job and paint full time. But here was this dilemma of, if I start to continue to grow and learn as a painter, will I lose my place in the galleries and no longer have the income that I needed? So she created a beautiful archetype for herself, but needed to find a way to manage that archetype. So the underneath truth of it is, I'm a painter and I want to learn and grow and develop my styles of what I'm doing. So we can create our own archetypes. We can create our own set of rules and forget to work our way out of them. Or we forget to stay into the essence of who we really are and what we're actually trying to create. So let's talk about some archetypes that you may have that you may not even be recognized in yourself. There's the saboteur archetype, the archetype that doesn't maybe have a lot of confidence, or it's just the destroyer, because the saboteur and the destroyer are kind of close together. Although the destroyer archetype is useful if you look at nature, and you're in a place where there's a season of spring, summer, winter. The archetype can come from the fall. That's the destroyer, where things go into a cycle, and what is existing must die. And so we have that archetype naturally within ourselves, but maybe we can't let go of something, or it's time to end a certain aspect of our lives so that we can move on to another aspect. And then you have the saboteur that comes in, and when you're being successful, the saboteur, or you're on the verge of being successful and you're afraid of it, the saboteur can come in and totally uproot what you're doing. And these are all roles that you play within yourself, not necessarily outside of yourself, something that's happening to you. The archetypes can invite in situations and things to cause you to feel that victim, or cause you to live in that certain archetype, and you feel like you have no choice. It's a very lovely dance, like the dance of drama that we create within ourselves by using these different archetypes. Each archetype has a shadow and a gift. The scapegoat archetype is really a fascinating one, where you're the person in the family that always gets blamed for everything. And he must have done that, or she's never, of course, that, something bad happens, of course she's behind it, or whatever. But the scapegoat, the gift in the scapegoat is the freedom of not having to live in the family's expectations. So the scapegoat is actually, as much as you may be getting a lot of blame and you're not getting a lot of kudos or a lot of happy stuff from the family, being blamed for everything gives you the freedom to walk away or turn your back on the maybe it could be a very dysfunctional family. So the scapegoat is usually the recognized member within especially difficult family as being the healthy one. And the scapegoat may be the one that goes to therapy, or maybe goes on a healing path or a healing journey to understand the nature of their lives and the nature of their families. So scapegoat, can you see how that has beautiful gifts within that shadow? The seductress, sometimes we, men and women, not just man or woman, come into a role where they can convince people. They can convince them to do things maybe they don't want to do, or they convince people that they're wonderful, that they're awesome. Narcissists can hold the seductress role within them, or the seductor's role within them. So they bring people to them, but not for the highest and best, not for a good result. This also is the seductress role can be very helpful when you are convincing somebody, or you're selling something, or you have a product, or you're in sales, where you can really make people feel good about what you have to offer them. So these archetypes have their dark side, have their light side, but they all have their gems. They all have their reasons for being. The warrior is an amazing archetype. The warrior, when we're in trouble, we always want to see the warrior around us. But the warrior may carry too heavy of a burden, where the warrior is built for defending no matter what. This powerhouse, but the warrior can't let balance come in. So the fight will never stop. And when the war is over, the warrior is still fighting. So that the person needs to step outside of the warrior archetype, or begin to bring it into a new, develop it and bring it into a new way of expression. So back in my past, how I worked with my archetypes, I was a very good mother. I was a good daughter, a good mother, although I don't know if my mom would say I was a good daughter, but anyway, I did the good thing. And I did my best with my children and put them first until my divorce, when I was taken to court over and over and over again so that my ex could get custody. I was accused of many awful things that I had not done, but you can always take a little mustard seed and make it into a mountain. Everything I did as a good mother was turned against me as something negative. And I felt horrible. For a long time, I felt horrible, and I defended my position as being this good mother, and that I had the kids' best interest in mind for many years, until one day I could see that I was losing this battle, because there were a lot of talented talkers, a lot of talented seductresses in this group, and I had to decide that it was okay to be a bad mother. The bad mother I was being accused of was the neglect, or was the over compensating, or the hovering. So I stopped hovering. I stopped overcompensating. I taught myself to step back and distance myself, which I thought was a bad thing to do as a mom. So I would not go down the drain of being a good mother. And as my accusers wanted me to be this good mother, because they wanted to really, lunch me out. They wanted to get the kids away from me. So they were giving me a welcome sign to that drain. And I stepped back. I said, I'm not going down that drain. And I actually shifted into survivor mode. And as I shifted into survivor mode, I embraced that archetype, which had a whole lot of rules and a whole lot of expectations to it, and a whole lot of behaviors to it. And I didn't like the survivor aspect. I didn't like the survivor archetype because it was too disempowering. So shortly after that, I decided I wanted to start living again instead of surviving. I let go of the good mother. I let go of the survivor. And I was a bad mother for a little while, but then I stepped into being an empowered, just me. As I'm doing the best thing I can. I'm doing the best that I'm doing my best life possible in this situation. And I began to develop other skills, other talents, other things that I loved, and which brought me as a person back into balance. Didn't necessarily solve the outer problem of custody of the children, but I remained standing, and I remained a happy person, and I became a balanced person as my kids grew up and began to have good lives on their own, or have their own lives, and needed some role models. They had a strong mother for a role model instead of a victim or a bad mother. They saw me as an individual. And I think that was the best ending to that scenario. We often move through life caught in what I call the triangle of drama. And the most basic triangle, there's some books written about it, is the victim, the victimizer, and the fixer. We dance around this triangle, and without realizing it, sometimes we'll stand in the victim part of the triangle, and we just are such good victims. And we can't even imagine being anything remotely close to the victimizer. The victimizer who's standing in his or her corner, being the victimizer, is also being a victim and can't imagine ever being a victimizer. So there's an interesting dynamic of not being responsible or not owning your thoughts, your behaviors, and what you're really doing. And then in the third corner is the fixer, the one who wants to have everyone get along, the one who wants to fix all the victims. And then the victimizer in one corner, you talk to him, that person, him or her, for a little bit, and then you realize, oh, they're hurt, they're in so much pain. And then you talk to the victim over here and you realize there's a very angry person over there and they've done some things that so the fixer can jump around. Who do I side with? If I side with this one, I'm the victimizer. If I side with this one, I'm the victim. So the fixer can't always just stay the fixer. The fixer every single person in this triangle goes to every single corner, even though we think we're not. So as we dance around in families and relationships and even workplaces, we have all three hats if we're staying in this kind of a drama. And one moment we're the one who's hurt, and the next we're the one who's saving everyone else, and then sometimes without meaning to, we become the one who wounds, the one who says, this isn't working anymore, it needs to stop, we need to make a change, and then everyone goes into victimhood and you're the bad person. It's really interesting how we throw around the labels. If a change is good, or if a change, you could really see growth in this change, but people are afraid of it, they could label it as something horrible. Or play with that for a little while. What else happens in your life with this kind of triangle? And archetypes can shape these roles. If we stay unconscious, we end up living from them instead of with them. So if we're unconsciously jumping around the victim, fixer, healer, whatever, and what archetype we're using in that's helps supporting the role of whatever you've chosen to be, you're caught in like this whirlpool. The game is starting to play you now. You're caught in the game. And to not be caught in the game anymore is to become awake, become aware of ourselves. And we begin to see the pattern instead of being the pattern. So instead of the game playing us, we see the rules of the game and we step back and we decide when we roll our dice which way we want to go. A lot of that's going on right now in the political fields. If you really want to study some archetypes, just look at the political news, just look at social media, and just say, read a blurb, meme. What archetype is that? And where's that archetype situating itself in the drama triangle? And you're going to come up with some really good information. And where am I positioning myself in this triangle that this post is presenting to me? Where do I stand? And you know what? You don't have to stand anywhere with what that post is. You could just say, this isn't me. I'm not going here. There's a lot of drama going on right now. And we're being asked to take sides. We're being asked to step into drama that isn't helpful. It's not growing. It's not learning. As a matter of fact, the drama can sometimes hurt us or hurt other people. When it's time for the archetype to come to an end, or it's no longer serving us, we need to step into that aware self and become tools of wisdom instead of prisoners of what we've identified with. So the aware self can stand in front of life and look at the chessboards and see where you want to position. I'm going to be a bully today. That's going to work out good. Now I need to be the seductress because I want to convince my son he needs to get his homework done. And now I'm going to try this. Even with my kids, I would try the mean mommy, become a werewolf so that they could understand I meant this boundary and we're going to keep this boundary. And I began, since I stepped away from being the good mother and raising happy, healthy kids, I became the independent woman who moved the chess pieces around the board for the best possible outcome that I could create. So awakening our aware self is equal to finding our own identity, as opposed to signing up to an outer identity that's calling us. Very big step in our lives. And these steps in these things. I'm calling it the five languages of the soul. I'm calling it your soul power journey. I'm calling the aware self, learning to speak to that your highest self, learning to speak to spirit, your soul, where you've come from, is all part of what I'm doing in these podcasts, but it's also part of what I'm doing in my mentorships, in my readings as a medium or an Akashic practitioner. And you can hear more and see more about it in that Facebook group called Soul Power Living, Tools to Create a Life You Want in Love. And archetypes are tools. When we remember what they're really used for, when we remember what they really are, the archetype of being the person to endure and go the distance, the marathon runner. Sometimes we need that archetype, but sometimes we need to know when it's over with, when we need to set it aside, we need to become the healed one, the healer, the rester. When we stop judging our roles and start understanding them, we can move out of the drama triangle into authenticity. Authenticity that's aligned with your soul, that's aligned with the essence of who you are, your spirit. And from that place, life becomes creative again and balanced, empowered. And it's a dance of choice, not a dance of compulsion. So we're playing an archetype in there, we're compulsion. We got to follow those rules or we're not going to be able to be successful in that archetype. And maybe we've decided that archetype is your road to success. Let's step back and not go there. And who are you really? And what is your true road to success through your path that your soul has put forward for you? And that's what soul power living is all about. Remembering that the roles we played are not who we are. We are the consciousness choosing the role. We are the consciousness. We are the aware self, and we're going to choose whatever role suits us in the moment. Or maybe it's no role. We are the love beneath the pattern. So as you move through your week, and it's Friday, this podcast is coming out on a Friday, but as you move through the next 7 days, notice which archetype you're playing, which archetype are you wearing, which archetypes are whispering in your ear. If you play with me, you'll be successful. And are you the caretaker today? Is that working for you? Are you the critic today? If you are the really hard-pressed critic, is there a spot in your life where you need to say no? Are you the rescuer? And is it time to rescue, or is it time to allow things again to go where they need to go, to go fallow, to go to ground, so that something new can be grown, be birthed out? So greet all of these archetypes with kindness, but remember they are guests in your home. They are not the masters. They are not the rulers of the home. You, your essence of yourself, connected to your soul, your higher power, in alignment and balance with the best part of you, that's who the master is. The more we meet these patterns with love, the freer we become, the freer. Think about this, the freer we become to live as our true soulful selves. So in summary, in this episode, we explored the powerful and sometimes limiting roles of these archetypes, the inner patterns we inherit. We can inherit them from past lives. We can inherit them from our family dharma, our family lineage, our mother and father, what have they brought into our lives. We inherit them from the careers we choose or the society we decide to step into. And these patterns become inner patterns, and they replay until finally they don't fit us anymore, and we outgrow them. Because if something is identifying you for who you are, and that's not really who you are, it's going to be a misfit. It's going to be a disconnect. It's not going to feel good, and you'll have to set it aside or outgrow it, or stay really unhappy. A good solution or a good thought process is, when you're living a life of unhappiness, is to look at what are the roles that you're playing, what are the archetypes that are alive in your life, and what are the archetypes you can turn on so that you can move yourself to something that's a little more authentic for you, that is authentic for you. From the good girl to the wounded child, from the fixer to the warrior, I talked on how these archetypes can trap us in patterns. Some of them are family patterns, some of them are societal patterns. And they can disempower us. And when we become awake and aware, we empower ourselves to meet these roles with awareness, and then we choose what hat do I want to wear today, if at all. I invite you to discover how to self-love and meaning loving yourself, and which comes into, as we love yourself, you come into conscious awareness about yourself. They go together. Can move you out of the drama triangle of victim, victimizer, and fixer, and into a balanced, authentic life aligned with your soul. Now, in the Tree of Life, the Kabbalah, they talk about the triangle of life, and that is the Sacred Father, the Sacred Mother, and the Sacred Child. Now, this Tree of Life talks about life happening, life being born, or life, humanity coming to life on this earth, and there's many layers of it, and vibrational layers that move down and up the ladder. And at the top of the ladder, just before we step into the fullness of the source and all that is, we have separated. We have a duality has come, and you have the Sacred Mother and the Sacred Father now to create the Sacred Child, meaning that we have the male and the female essence that creates life. And that is the first place that in the Kabbalah that talks about when we have come away from Source, when we have come into the humanity, which we're still spirit, but we stepped away from being in that source, being in the presence of spirit all the time, into a life of duality. And when we understand that stepping out of the unhappy mother into the Sacred Mother, or the unhappy father into the Sacred Father, we will find a balance that brings us to our authentic self, the Sacred Child. And it's interesting that I found that triangle existed in the Tree of Life in the Kabbalah after I found it in psychology in the triangle of drama, victim, victimizer, and fixer. So in everything that we have, in every essence, in every archetype that you play, there is a higher essence. There is a gift. And we talked about that in this episode. What is your gift in your deepest suffering, in the roles that you're playing with these archetypes to survive life or to get through life? What is the gift in it? What is, when we embrace the gift, when we love or have patience with the role that we're playing, knowing that it still doesn't fit, when we embrace it and find the gift, that's when the role will shift and change, and that's when we own it. And that's shadow work. Maybe podcast will talk more deeply about shadow work, but that is truly what shadow work is: to love yourself, to love the thing that you're the most frustrated with, until you find the gem and the message of why this is happening, or what put this into place, and it can move to its higher essence. I invite you to discover how self-love and conscious awareness can move you out of drama and into living a soul-aligned life. Becoming connected with your soul, becoming connected to that higher power, will change everything in terms of you understanding yourself and being able to make different choices. So what archetype do you notice showing up in your life the most? And is it helping you express your soul, or is it hiding you from your soul, or hiding your soul from you? How would your relationships change if you stopped being the role and started seeing the role, which we've covered? And what's in your life now? And what would you like in your life instead of what you have? So join me again for a soulful discussion on how archetypes share our lives in the group Soul Power Living: Tools to Create a Life You Want and Love. And for now, go in curiosity, go in adventure, go in being the detective of what's running your life, and find the peace and find the love. Stay in the love, stay in your soul, and be creative. And I'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining the Angelscapes podcast. We hope you've gained new insights and inspiration for your journey to uncover and access your soul's power. For more information and a deeper dive into finding clarity in your life, go to angelscapes.com. Remember to subscribe so you can be part of the discussion. It may just change your life. See you next time.